And if you study the channeling of Kryon, you will see the structure in the message. It's compartmentalized. It's logical. There's a start, a middle, a finish. And none of these things will you see in a multidimensional energy, a soup where there is no time. And so something had to happen in our communications that would allow this meld. And what about your intuition? It is the same. As you start to practice that which you call intuitive thought, if you wish to hold on to it longer and see what it says, the sender of the intuitive thought will also change. You are giving intent to straighten out, interpret, and translate the message as you give intent to hear it. Human beings are compartmentalized to the max, and this is part of being a three-dimensional human. You actually are in 4D, but you call it 3. And past that, there is a multidimensional soup, not even countable. It doesn't go 5 on. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, all. And it makes it so difficult to cross that bridge. And so what I'm going to tell you next is going to trigger confusion. And it's exactly what I want to do. Because I wish you to think out of the box. In order to do this, I will present a scenario that involves what you would call the human soul. Now, I just gave you an expression that is incorrect. It's only incorrect because human language betrays the bias of singularity in the phrase. The meaning a. Human belonging to one. Soul, not souls, singular. So you have one, human soul. It belongs to you, you belong to it. End of story. And that is how you portray it, and that is the way you think of it. So let us take that concept apart in a way that you will understand. And again, we start in that marvelous field long time ago when the prophet Elijah, with free will, decided to ascend. One of the only human beings, through free choice, who decided to ascend on his own schedule outside of the transition of death, and in his case, had somebody watching and taking notes. And when he did it, the first thing that the note taker, whose name was Elisha, saw was that he turned into a ball of light. And so we have the concept right now of something happening and the question of what it was. For whatever the energy of the human soul was did not go into the sky and turn into light. Nothing came down to get him and turn into light. He turned into light while he stood in the field. And this was the combination of the pieces and the parts of the soul on earth and the soul on the other side of the veil. And that combination cannot be sustained in a corporeal form. Now, I want my partner to back up and give you that again. When you decide to come into this planet, dear human being, you already have a soul on my side. And it's not a soul. It's part of the soup of God. It's a collective, a confluence of energy that can never be separate. A piece of us is imbued in you. A piece. It's not possible for you to come into this planet with your entire self that is spiritual. You cannot bring your whole soul in because you would vaporize like Elijah did. Part of you has to stay on my side of the veil. And so the working puzzle here, and that you see, is you already have a soul split. And that soul split is the communication strand, some calling it the silver cord, that keeps you grounded on the planet but allows an open portal through the pineal to that which is the peace of God you are. You call it the higher vibrating self, higher self. And so your quest for the higher self is really the quest to talk to that part of you on the other side of the veil, which you call God. Are we confused yet? This is the easy part. So I hope you see this part, because the rest of it gets really confusing. And here you are on the planet, a piece of you. Because you are sacred part of the creative source, the other part of you remains on my side. What you call the other side of the veil. And now you're walking the earth with a puzzle. How do I connect? How do I connect? The old soul is the first one to ask that, because lifetime after lifetime they have felt the connection and they wish to reconnect it again. And this is part of what brings you to the chair, or to listen to this channeling, or to know more about your soul. So let us say this is the starting part of this story. Now it gets complicated. We have told you that upon your death, a piece and the part of that which is your soul energy stays on the planet in several ways. We'll talk about the living way so it doesn't get even more confusing. You stay with your loved ones as part of their guide set. And we have told you this before. How many of you sitting in the chairs, listening right now, can feel those you've loved and lost around you? And I will tell you, you've got to be dense as a brick not to. Because the old soul knows I'm right. If you've lost parents, they're with you. If you've lost children, they're with you. This is part of the most grand system you can imagine. And in the new teaching, in this newer energy, it is going to start to get more complex because you are able to understand it. Swallow hard and say, although I am singular, I get it. You don't have to know the physics of it. But if you could be multidimensional and you would understand what the physicists call quantum, you'd know you can be in several places at the same time. Multidimensional energies that you can see on the planet, you can prove can do that. So it's not such a stretch that the soul can too. And you cannot ask the questions, where am I? You can't. Because you're everywhere. Your focus at the moment is in your human body. But part of your soul is on the other side of the veil. Now it gets complicated. When you pass on, the corporeal part that was in your soul, part of it goes to collective, and you become complete, except that you leave some behind, and you leave it with your loved ones who remain. Now they have part of your soul as their guide group, and they're walking around on the earth. So let's take a summary. You have come and you've gone, you've departed, and now you are on the other side of the veil as a part of God, except pieces of you are with your loved ones. depending upon how many you have and how many children, and even those you've fallen in love with that are still here and you're not. They don't even have to be biological family. They're karmic family. You may be a piece and a part of as many as 25 or 30 people on the planet, and they're walking around. Now, how many are you at this point? And you can't answer that any more than you can say, how many are in the soup that we have discussed? Now, get ready for the hard part. You decide to reincarnate. And you do. And in comes the precious baby. And the cave of creation knows you're coming. And all that you were in all of your past lives is put into the DNA so that you would have the record inside of you as you progress and mature in your life and awaken, using that soup of energy and all the wisdom of the past lives to create this life, this new life as a child. And so here you are, reincarnated on the planet, and at the same time you're on the other side, and at the same time you're with 25 other people. So where is the soul now? Now I want you to amplify that by as many times as you've lived. And also to know that a part of your soul remains on the planet every single time you come and you go. That part of the energy of what you do is in the crystalline grid. And there's even more. Things we haven't discussed yet are part of this plan. You belong to Gaia. Because the Gaia energy is the collection point of the human soul parts, if you might say that. In a way, you never leave. In a way, you're always on the other side. In a way, you're always with loved ones. How do you like it so far? It's not about the complexity, it's about the beauty of the system. And it is a system. It's just not linear. And in our view, the hardest thing to tell you is this: because we have no time like you do, and because we have no linearity like you do, we see the culmination of all of your past lives and all of your karmic family happening all the time, and we see your imprint as enormous. I hope you get this. As you sit in the chair, we see the enormity of your soul influence on earth. And that is why we wash your feet. And that is why we congratulate you for what you've done. We don't see it a lifetime at a time like you do. We don't even see the complexity we've just given you. We just see your imprint and your stamp of this beautiful soul on so much of the planet, and so many humans who have also gone on to be old souls and shared it with their loved ones and karmic family. In a way, you might say the creative soul of you is everywhere. And I wanted to give that to you in these short moments so you'd have a better idea, not just of who you are, but as how we see you. Is it any wonder that our hand is always outstretched, waiting for pure intent? Waiting for free will, if you want to say, I want a bigger window. And in the bigger window, I'll have more information. And in the bigger window, I have more opportunities and more power, literally, to create that which I wish to create. And the old soul, with the maturity and the patience that is being developed, will always wish to create that which is benevolent for the planet And it starts with peace on earth. That is only the first goal, dear one. You see it as the ultimate. Once you've got peace on earth, all is well. Oh, really? Once you have peace on earth, let me tell you, you can start the process of an ascended planet. Not until then. When you stop killing each other, we can begin. And we've never said that before either. There is so much ahead of you. And the old souls in the room are not done with your work. Do not interpret this as, oh my goodness, I'm going to be tired. Because you don't have the mind of God while you sit here in a corporeal body. When I see you on the other side of the veil, yet again, we'll celebrate and congratulate you as you return quickly in order to continue what you won't miss, the party you won't miss. This is what we see. It's the reason we're here. These are complex times with complex ideas that you are ready to hear. Go from this place different than you came, not confused, but rejoicing in the system that is benevolent and loving, created for you. And so it is.
Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. My partner steps aside. As he often does, he removes himself completely. He has to. In order for the purity of the information to be accurate and true without a filter of humanism. The system is beautiful. It is a system of intuition which uses the human's intellect, the brain, all the language skills, and yet without the filter. The God inside comes forward in beauty and benevolence and is allowed to speak. Using your language and the language which we are going to call and have in the past the third language. It has nothing to do with three languages. The third language is a metaphor. The three in numerology is a catalyst. A catalytic number would be that energy which then would change things that come in contact with it. And that's you. Some of you will receive information even as I proceed that is completely different than the information that the voice will say. There's an entourage here. It's not what you think. You talk about entities. You might even talk about Kryon as being a singular entity. It's not. It's not exactly a group. It's a consciousness that brings with it others who are also consciousness and fills the room with love. In a multidimensional way, you cannot count what is here, for that is a linear operation. But you can sense it. And that's good enough. If you're in love with somebody, do they say, count it? They do not. For it represents the essence of an emotion, an energy that has no counting. And that's who we are. I present these things to you because I want to show you some things you didn't expect. I want to show you the glory and the grandness of you. Far beyond just you? What if everything around you, everything, was a system? A system that was planned by your consciousness when you were not here. Listen to me. If you have God inside, to whatever that means to you, whatever that means to you, if you have the essence of the Creator inside, that means you were here before creation. I want you to use that part of you which believes that to stand by and validate a few of the things that I tell you. What I'm about to tell you and the story I'm going to give you, pieces and parts I have given before. But perhaps not all together and in this way for the reason I'm doing it. There are times when I want to sit in the chair and just celebrate you. Your family. Human beings have a tendency to look up at the Creator and feel less than the Creator. Don't ever do that. For when you are not here in this earthly body, you are part of the creative source that made the earth itself. And if you can understand and realize this, you're going to be able to change what you do in the body. You are valuable to the planet beyond belief. You have reason to be here, even if you can't figure it out. I ask you yet again, do you have to know everything to walk forward? Really? And we say it yet again. You use faith every day of your life in so many mundane things, and yet when it comes to your spirituality, you stop and you analyze. You walk to your auto and you get in and you trust it's going to start and go. All of those parts, the workings of perhaps the internal combustion engine, are not yours to know. You don't care. You simply go home. Why won't you do that with God? Why don't you trust the workings that you don't know? I want to enhance this. I want to give you a bigger picture. And as I do this, I want you to sit with me and go back in time. I want you to go back to creation. I want you to go back to the creation of the universe, because you were there. You're not just an old soul. For that will give you an idea of how many lives you've lived. Go beyond that, piece of God. Be a part of creative source, an old part, a part that had no beginning and no end. A circle of reality that always was and always will be. There is only one truth in the universe, and that is God exists. And all that is around it are machinations and shades of the existence of God. For all around you, all you see is God's creation. Everywhere you look, with eyes that were created by God, you see God. But with free choice as a biological person, human being, you have a brain that is allowed to question and figure it out. And that's why I'm here. What I say today is not instructions. They're not revelations. Not really. A celebration of what you might already know. Come with me to the beginning. Dear ones, if you want to know how the universe was created, I will tell you in some ways it always was. There was no such thing as the Big Bang. Your scientists will understand and know that. For the Big Bang is an idea of something from nothing, and that is not the way it works. There are multiverses around you, universes aplenty that are in multi-dimensions, even passing through yours. Do not try to locate them, find them, or figure it out. It just is. It's part of a beautiful plan of balanced physics. When some of the dimensionality of the universes in the multiverse cross paths in a certain way, a new universe is born. Yours was because of this. Not something out of nothing, but something that was designed because other things were there and overlapped. In your case, there were three overlappings. The catalyst created your bang, and you came into existence. On purpose you were. It developed in ways you would not believe, faster than it should have, according to what you figured out. Time is relative. You cannot measure it by yours. You cannot even go back and look at light and decide how fast it was going, for it changed too. The actual physics that you enjoy is different in parts of the universe than here. How can you ever then take the measuring stick of what you know and apply it to something you don't? Therefore, the timing was different, the reactions were different, even what you see today and you think you know about was different. But I want to tell you what you didn't expect. With the trillions of galaxies in this universe, we concentrate on yours. And we never talk about the others, ever. For there are things going on in the others just as profound and beautiful and benevolent as yours, but you are in yours. It is so vast by itself, you will never see all of it, unless you're on my side of the veil. It has wonders beyond belief, beauty, colors you cannot see in wavelengths that you only can dream about. It is the creation of God. Dear Creator, you were there and watched it. Time is not important because you don't have any problem with it. It is not in your dimensional reality when you're on my side of the veil. But you can still see the beauty and the light and watch it unfold. Dear ones, your solar system is simply a pinpoint of light within billions of pinpoints of light. And yet here I am with you. I want to tell you about the creation of Earth because it was planned. The seeding of your planet approximately 200,000 years ago, which lended itself to what you call Lemuria in 50,000 beyond, is brand new. I want to take you 4 to 5 billion years ago. I want you to watch your planet develop. And as you do, I want to give you some information. And the reason I do it is because I want you to see something. I want you to see a benevolent plan that has created the couch of consciousness and the garden that you inhabit. Something that was never an accident, prepared in advance by the Creator itself for you. So that you will have an idea of the importance of the human being to us. How can I tell you things that you cannot know of or see or that you never discovered? I would like to remind you of something. The creation of earth as described in your most recent scriptures has the metaphor of a 7-day creation. These were indeed dispensations of creation, steps of creation, not days. And look at the amount of verbiage given to the creation of earth as opposed to the creation of the universe or each galaxy or the trillions of other earths and stars. And why was it just the story of you? In that which you would call Genesis in the beginning, it wasn't really the beginning at all, was it? It was about you. And the reason that there are not volumes and volumes written about the creation of everything else is because everything else is different than you. You see, you were created by design. Design. The Creator is the one who can put together the stars in a certain way, control and create any part of what you would call that which is matter and mass and physics itself in order to build that which it needs to build for you. Beautiful it is. God, it is. Picture the earth in its infancy, in its beginning. That is where the story started in Genesis, not with the bigness of it all. Only a few words about the universe and light, the sun. It's all about you. Because the earth is designed. The first design, dear ones, had life occurring on the earth from two suns. Now, you should know this. This is not verified, but will be, and is common sense. If you have a planet somehow rotating around a two-star system of any kind, even if it's a complex rotation, you have double the chances for the beginning of life. The sun is the giver of life. It is the catalyst of chemistry combined with that on the planets, which would then have amino acids, the electricity of storms, all then to create that which is the building blocks of the kind of life you know. With double the power of the sun, not heat, but the sun. 2, it's going to happen quick. 1 was taken away. Now this is intuitive, and you'll even find it in some of the prophecies, in some of the channelings, but you'll find it in a very different way because it has gone to a way that humans like, negativity. But it was accurate. You lost a son. Now there's a reason for this, and it's twofold. Number 1, so that life would not develop quickly. It had to come later. You had to sit and wait for it because this planet of free choice needed time for other planets to do what they did before you ever got going. And the second thing is that all life that can travel from planet to planet in this galaxy knows that life will be found around two suns. So you hide. To the most part, you have remained hidden from the other life which is able to see you or touch you or travel to see you. And the few that do and have do not necessarily talk to the others. There's no internet in the galaxy. What happened to your sun is it collapsed upon itself and gravity became great. Much of it dissipated and the gases burned off. It never exploded. It simply collapsed. To collapse itself was traumatic, absolutely, to the earth, but there was no life on the earth. It didn't matter. Part of the earth was cooling. It didn't matter. The rest of it, which was matter and not much matter, became smaller, actually, than a planet and disappeared. Some have channeled that that planet has a name and it's dark and it still rotates your existing sun. Some have channeled that it hides from you behind the sun and that somehow, in some way, it's going to get a push to come around and destroy you soon. Now, I want to ask you, dear human being with common sense in this new energy, did you come all this way past a marker just to be destroyed? And so I want you to take that information and sort it where it belongs, into folklore, mysticism, and things that are not going to happen. Could I be clearer? The magnificence of what you've done does not then go toward destruction by a nameless planet that I will not mention, that comes at you from the dark with impossible physics that nobody can see. Here you are on a planet with technology that allows you to see small asteroids, to travel to them and land on them, and you're expected to believe that a planet's going to come out of the dark that nobody knows is going to happen or see, and your instruments can't pick up, and it's going to hit you and kill you. Common sense. Let it prevail. But you lost a son. The earth was hobbled at that point. Life was tough. It was made tougher by the geology of the planet, which kept erupting. It didn't quite cool as fast, perhaps, as others around it. Now, it had one sun, and that has something to do with it. It didn't have quite the gravity, it did not have quite the friction that you would have otherwise in other ways that would create some kinds of the heat that you didn't expect. Just to say this, it didn't cool right, not like some of the others. Uninhabitable, even by microbes. When life got its start, it fizzled. Didn't work, it wasn't balanced. It started again, and it fizzled. It wasn't balanced. There was something missing. It fizzles, that is to say, it dies because it was not sustainable, it was not self-sufficient. The sparks of life were given 5 times. One sun, it's a tough call. Go ahead and try it. Build a greenhouse, plant your vegetables, and then cover it up with a tarp. And let's watch what happens. And then it happened over and over. For whatever reason geologically you want to consider, and I will tell you, there was intelligent design here, the earth would erupt. Thousands of volcanoes would go up at the same time, covering this planet with a dark cloud that lasted thousands and thousands of years. Nothing could grow. No life could happen. The sun was blotted out. The little sun you had wasn't there. Eventually, it took place that the spark of photosynthesis happened. And at the time that life started on this planet and plants started to grow and microbes started to move around, I would like to give you information. At that point in time, Orion and Arcturus were alive and well with humanoids. Oh, you were slow. That's by design. You had to be stopped from growing too fast. Because when you appeared and were seated, it had to be the right way, with the right ones, in order to get that which is the magnificence of who you are and where you'd be. Controlled it was by the Creator itself. Even when you got going and things were good, suddenly there was a collision and you had the moon and you started over. And then the volcanoes went off again, wiping away 80% of the life that was there. Here comes the cloud. The beginning of animals, reptiles, disappearing completely, starting over. By then the Pleiadians had the life force on their planet. The Pleiadians is a 7-sun cluster. You see 7, you call it 7. That 7 cluster is really 9. Some of the brilliance that you see from the earth that you call the suns actually are suns hiding behind the 7 that you claim are there. The configuration alone allows life faster than yours. The earth is what you would call a planet in the sweet spot of biology, just far enough away from the sun, a sun which is a certain size, to be the incubator that you needed for life, but not a very good one at the time. The Pleiadians had more. Not only that, there were 3 planets that rotated their suns, which they could facilitate and eventually did as their homes. It's very different, dear ones. This earth was by design. Life finally got going. And then the asteroids came and wiped it away yet again. Volcanoes went off and it was covered yet again. It didn't cool very well. Dear ones, it's still not cooled enough. You still have volcanoes going off. But it's now appropriate and okay. When life started to take hold as you know it today, it was the beginning of the history that you know of. You don't know what happened before because there's no way to have recorded it. The moltenness of the planet, the volatility of it, wiped away every trace of what had happened. You only know what you can see that remained. If you had a way of interrogating the depths of the planet as it churned itself over upon itself, you might actually be able to figure it out, and you'd be shocked. It took so long to get going. 1 billion, 2 billion, 3 billion, 3.5 billion. By this time, there was life all over the galaxy that was humanoid. And some of them had the Creator inside like you do. And they had higher selves and they were working on the puzzles that you were. And you were still microbial. By design, it is beautiful, is it not, how we held it back so you would not arrive too soon. Now, the irony in all of this, dear human being, is that you were not sitting here watching it and waiting it. You see, you had planets of your own. You were working on then. We have told you this before. This is what you do. What you were doing on this planet, some of you are starting to remember you've been through before. That is the intuition starting to kick in and actually create a bridge between your consciousness and your innate and your higher self that starts to reveal what your Akash knows about you in other worlds. We do not encourage you to spend time with this because it will not help you now except for you to realize that it happened before and it turned out well. Why am I telling you this? I want you to know it was designed for you. With love and benevolence and beauty for you. Some of you sitting there wondering, who am I? Why me? Woe is me. With the lack of self-worth is unbelievably strong for a light worker. Because you've been through so many negative things in so many lifetimes and you're expecting it to happen again. I want to tell you, this was designed for you. Because you are magnificent. This is the way it works and always has worked. You were able with free choice to destroy yourself, never get out of the playground, but you didn't. And wisdom prevailed. And now you're in the twilight of an ascended planet by design. Evolution. Now it gets different. Here come the animals that are going to survive, not the dinosaurs. No more extinction. Now we have to get going. And now we accelerate it. And everything that you know about evolution is wrong. If you do the computations of how long it would take with the Darwin theory, it would have taken 8 to 10 times as long. This evolutionary process to bring you to humanism was accelerated, massively accelerated, and not an average accident. When mammals started to occur and be on the planet, leading then to the primates, leading then to where you became in the evolutionary scheme, when this started to happen, dear ones, nature as you know it today was cranking out the things that you see in zoos today. And that is, nature creates variety for survival. How many kinds of deers are there, and rats are there, or mice are there? All of the animals, big and small, for survival reasons, had many variations and varieties. And by the way, so did the primates. So did the humans. And occasionally you'll dig up a real tall one, or perhaps a real small one. Maybe you'll even dig up one with a tail. That's not you, is it? 200,000 years ago is nothing. Nothing. If you compared the existence of your planet to a 12-hour clock, 200,000 years ago when the Pleiadians seeded you with the consciousness of the Creator is in the last second and a half. And it's right on time. By this time, there had been 8 other planets of free choice. Billions of years had gone by. The Pleiadians were in their ascended status and had been for thousands of years. Able to control physics, move where they wanted to go with the Creator inside of them. They were enjoying an ascension status, partly biological, mostly consciousness, difficult to explain, all multidimensional and beautiful. When they came here, what they had to do in the first 100,000 years was to call out the other kinds of human beings. There used to be more than 20. You see some in your biological records, maybe as many as 17. There were a lot more than that. Kinds of human beings, all culled down to one. Now, I ask you right now, where do you see that in nature any other place? It was by design. It is counterintuitive to evolution. It is counterintuitive to nature. One human being was seeded so that one kind of human being could walk through what you walked through, in beauty, in frustration, with free choice. We've given you the rest of the story, which we call the history of Earth. Now we gave you the history of the galaxy. A design that was elegant. You were out of the curve of chance. And we say to science right now, go prove it. For everything you're going to look at will not follow an average at all. It'll be outside of the curve of possibility and probability that things happened on this planet the way they happened, and the reason is because it was designed for you. The beautiful meal called Earth was cooked slowly, and then at the last minute was accelerated. The salt was put in, and here you are at the last minute, and the meal is being consumed. That is to say, is being lived by you. And you are about ready to have the meal become the fruition of the consciousness of peace on earth. Does this put your perspective on another scale of who you are? What I have given you is absolute truth of the history of this planet, designed, conceived, and built to be a planet of free choice, with one sun against all odds. And against all odds, with free choice, you just walked through the precession of the equinoxes. In 2015, which we call year 2, you're in the twilight of peace on earth. Don't despair from what you see by those who deliver what they want you to see on the news. For the real news is that this planet is churning with change. And the change is not those who are presenting to you horror and hate. The change is what you cannot see, which is the rest of the planet starting to coalesce and react and decide that they want light. Slow it will be, but don't fret. How long have you waited? How many lifetimes have you slogged through it to get to here? It's human nature that you'll wait a few weeks to see a change. What about a few generations? You're going to be here, and it's just going to get better. Every single moment that we channel to you, your biology has a chance to ring with the truth of who you are. And in that ringing with the third language is an energy of healing, awareness, beauty, solution to problems that are yours. Don't prejudge how you think it's going to turn out in your life, dear human being, because you don't know what you don't know. The message today, against all odds, the big gamble, wasn't really a gamble at all. For here you sit, having passed this marker. I want you to sit for a moment and feel the congratulations, the benevolence of the Creator inside. And when we say job well done, we mean it, because you worked for it and you earned it. And now I know what's going to happen next. You always have done it. Go do it. It's why we're here. Built for you. The very cosmos knows your name. And so it is.
Hi everybody, thanks for watching this. I wanted to tell you this is a little time sensitive.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. It would astonish you to know the length of time that you've been here. On the planet in some form or another. And these are the things that hide. They hide so completely behind a veil of appropriateness. It doesn't really serve you to constantly be interrupted by those energies of the past. And so there's always the feeling that perhaps this is it. This is the only life you get. And then on purpose, there's no real proof of those who would come back and touch you on the shoulder and say, well, I'm still here. And so, dear ones, all that I speak about, all that I am as Kryon and represent, is something you trust in faith. But the human condition is changing. And what is changing is the toolkit of wisdom. Wisdom, of all of the things in your toolkit, is one of the only things that's tied to everything else. It's tied to intuition. It's tied to Akash. And it's tied to something new. And this newness is something you will name eventually. But some have other names for the feeling that you've been there spiritually. A feeling of knowing when things are correct. A knowingness inside you that will nod in agreement involuntarily when you hear the wisdom of the ages that's correct. This is something new that some of you are going to experience, and that would be this. You'll have an evolution of the intuitiveness of truth. And things that will ring with the purity of truth will do so in a way that you can measure. Something will happen. Perhaps it will be emotion. Perhaps it'll be a feeling, maybe chills, something else. Perhaps it's just something that will ring in that which is your countenance, that this is correct and for you. Now this is new in that in an older energy, it wasn't there. Now women will say, well, I have intuition of that very thing in an older energy. And I will say, not to the degree you do today. And not to the degree that all humans will feel it. For whereas it might have belonged to women, because they have better intuition in general, because of a connection in their brains that's different biologically, it now is available for humanity. So you might say the very physics of the reality you sit in is starting to change. You might even say that things are becoming wiser. Wisdom is an interesting, very interesting study. And if you want to take a look at the wisdom of humanity, it's had a very interesting background, because it really isn't wisdom at all. At the level of the evolution of your consciousness, it is a self-enclosed wisdom. It's the kind of a wisdom that would congratulate itself for being so wise. We'll call this bridled wisdom. We sit in the temple of wisdom. And by the very name temple, it would be the wisdom of God. The wisdom of the creating source. That source which is above all sources, which involves compassion and love. One of the interesting things about true wisdom is that it's quiet. It's knowing. And it involves more than just thinking. The famous statue of the thinker might bring you to the conclusion that that thinker is also wise. It's not necessarily true. He's thinking about it. And so it's almost always connected to the brain. Wisdom is almost always connected to the brain. How intellectual is this person who is wise? I've told you something before, I'll tell it again. In this examination of wisdom, wisdom without love is nothing. It's just words. Wisdom without the foundation of compassion is nothing. It's just words. Wisdom is the result of love and compassion, working together in a way that examines that which is beautiful, core spiritual truth. And out of that comes the wisdom that you wish you had. The brain cannot give you wisdom. It can give you high thinking. It can give you the illusion of wisdom. But it can only give you what I will call bridled wisdom. Wisdom that is contained in a fence of self-belief. Famous story. Those who wish to open a door. And so they slam their heads against the door. Over and over and over. The door, by the way, never opens, but they congratulate themselves for slamming their heads. And after a while, they stop slamming their heads and proclaim the door has opened, even though it never did. Some even give their lives to slam their head against the door in an attempt to be part of that congratulations that the door opened when it didn't. After a period of time, they realized the door must be opened again, even though it never opened the first time. And they come back and slam their heads against it yet again. And every single time they do, they congratulate themselves when they're done. And they even talk about the wisdom that it took in order to accomplish the slamming of their heads. This is humanity at its best. This is an old energy you grew up in. You know exactly what I'm talking about. After a period of time, they slam their heads yet again. Sometimes the door has different names. Sometimes the doors are different and they never open. And each time there is a cycle of self-congratulations, there's an acknowledgement of wisdom that never occurred, because it is in a circle and it's never really seen past the human brain. Along comes a person with a key for the door and they open it. And everyone's shocked. And they quickly take that person and tell them never to come back. Because now they're dealing with the devil, with the occult, with solutions that were outside of the reality of anything a human could do. Therefore, they slammed the door and continued to beat their heads against it. The wisdom of the ages comes from a dysfunctional brain set that believes it's wise when it isn't. Congratulates itself for things that don't deserve to be congratulated. We've told you the story, a fool does not know they're a fool. And it's the same reason. For they can be ultra foolish and never see it. And they will walk away from being very foolish when others see it immediately and be in self-congratulatory ways of how they acted, being the fool that they were. The human race does not know it's dysfunctional yet. It is just climbing out of this self-proclamation of what it believes wisdom is. But it's doing it. Unbridled wisdom is complicated, and it's so different from wisdom that you would think is wise. It doesn't belong to the intellectual thinker, dear ones. It belongs to the average human being with compassion. Wisdom takes a new place that you've never even thought about of where it would be. Did the masters of this planet have wisdom? And if so, how much noise did they make? And the answer is none. They sat there and they were quiet. And the wisdom that exuded out of all of them was the wisdom of the ages, and they could look at you and melt you with the love and the compassion. And the result was wisdom. Unbridled wisdom does not come from the brain. It comes from the cells. Then you get into the discussion of what really truly might be inside your DNA. Do you believe in the human Merkaba? An energy field, if you wish to call it that is a multi-dimensional field, if you wish to call it that is 8 meters wide. And in this patterned Merkaba, you have studied the flower of life, and you have seen the immensity of the complexity and the beauty of all of this. Then we go on to tell you that this Merkaba is filled with patterning that someday you can see. When you have the ability to observe multidimensional patterns, you will see that which is around every human. And the patterning itself will be diagnostic as to how a human is doing, feeling, how healthy they are, how balanced they are. All of these things, that is coming. But in this Merkaba, I ask the question, how is it generated? Where does it come from? And there would be those who say, well, it comes from the soul. And then you would say, well, where is the soul? And this will lead to many answers, none of which will be true. You're guessing. It's a lot more practical than anything you think. It comes right from that which is your collective DNA. For dear ones, that DNA, that beautiful DNA, the 23 layers that are visible and the one that is not, comes from the stars. And the patterning in your DNA that creates that which is your human Merkaba is sacred. And there'll come a day when you would acknowledge that biology has a place that is part of the wisdom of the planet. And it's not in the brain. It's in the DNA. And in the DNA, there's something else. And we have told you. What is not in the brain that is in the DNA is that which is what you call the memory of everything. You're Akash. Who were you? What have you accomplished on the life? And in that accomplishment of life after life, did you learn anything? And if you did, what do you call it? Wisdom. And so the greatest unbridled wisdom on the planet is going to come right out of the old souls who may even sit right here. It's the same wisdom that the masters would have. It has nothing to do with intellectual pursuit. And it knows better than to slam its head against a door. Unbridled wisdom will be quiet. And out of the depths of the Akashic record, it will pull what used to work, not what didn't work. And it will start having memories that are positive, not negative. Unbridled wisdom will start to understand who it is. The wisest of them all. If you were to find that person, The attributes would be this. Number one, they would be quiet. Number two, they would realize that everything they know is a fraction of what exists. Number three, they would always be ready for things they didn't expect. Number four, they would love unconditionally. Number five, they would have the compassion of a saint. That would be the wisest one on the planet. Did you hear anything about high thinking? Did you hear anything about remembering wise words from the past? And the answer is no. Because the greatest wisdom on the planet comes from that which is experienced. What can you take away from this discussion of a new kind of wisdom? It will start changing the way everything works. For with a wiser humanity, they will start changing that which is in everyday life has been the way it has been forever. It starts to morph into something else. The way you do business. Business will start to understand in its wisdom that employees, their human resources, are the most valuable things that exist on the planet. And they must be cared for and taken care of. And it won't be about that bottom line at all. The bottom line, which would have been financially, is going to be how do we take care of those who work in the company? What is it we can do to make this experience more peaceful for them and more productive for them and for us? Until corporations often become large families and you'll never want to leave them because they take care of you. Is that some kind of a Pollyanna pie in the sky? Dear ones, it's already here in some cultures. What would wisdom look like in politics? And we've told you. We've told you there'll come a day when if one candidate will criticize another in a non-ethical way, you'll drop them because they're non-ethical. If one candidate would then speak harshly of the opponent and call them names, you'll drop them because it's unethical. And you'll see right through it. And you will expect integrity, honesty, and compassion. And you can weigh the two sides of how they believe government should be operated, but you don't have to slaughter one in order for the other one to win. That's going to change the way politicians campaign. You'll find that they can't be nice enough to each other. When you start changing, they'll react. And by the way, you'll see through that too. They're just pretending. Until one or two will come along and mean it. And really like the other one and see the difference between the way they think and not make it the way the world works. It's going to change who is elected. Because the one who is elected will then go on to expect integrity from those he works with or that she works with. It's going to change everything. Because it comes from that which is not the heart, but the DNA. You ask, what have you been through? And the answer is everything. You look at the genders in the room and you say you've all switched them. Each man has been a woman, each woman has been a man many times. You keep trading places. Each one of you has full human experience. Each one of you has experienced the joys and the horrors of life. And in that it creates a wisdom that could never be generated by the human brain just by thought alone. Unbridled wisdom. What's the difference between that and the wisdom of God? And the answer is this: you're getting closer to what the creative source and the original teaching of the Pleiadians gave you. And that is that there is a connection, a oneness with everything on this planet. Right now, the wisest one on the planet may very well be a tree hugger. Because that person is connected to Gaia and has the wisdom of the ages through the roots that go down to the earth. And as the tree breathes what you exhale, it becomes one with you and you with it. And that which you feel, which is emotion for that which is nature, is the wisest thing you could ever have. And you know this. If you could impart that feeling and turn it upon humanity, you would. And some cry that you can't. And as they will gaze out over the vista of the beauty of nature, they would say, why cannot humanity see this? The indigenous taught this. The indigenous of the planet had far greater wisdom than you do today, because they understood the connection with all things. So that's the next step. We speak about your DNA. We speak about the Akash that is there that helps you with the experience that you've had to develop the compassion and the love for other humans. And then the final one is this: the connection with the earth. Some of the wisest on the planet through the ages have been those who are shamanic, who are connected to the planet in such a way that it's hard to tell the difference between the earth and them. And that's the way of it. It used to be this way. And it will be again. As you start to understand the energy of the grids and how these things that you think belong to the earth actually guide and help you. Every single one. Another attribute of wisdom is the realization of how you're connected to that which we call the field. Is it possible that simply walking around the earth, you're connected to things that know you? That there is a coherence between you, your consciousness, and all that is. As you work and walk from A to B, that you feel your hand is being held as you go, and you think, well, that's God. Maybe it isn't. Maybe it's God in you, connected to all that is on the planet, working together for you. And you'd stop for a moment and you'd say, how wise am I to know these things? And then you'd be quiet about it. Dear Kryon, if we're going to be so wise, why can't we talk about it? Why do we have to be silent? And here's the reason. Because in your silence, you transmit unbridled wisdom. The masters of the planet look you in the eye. And all that is yours. Because of their love and their compassion. And they say very little. Nature knows it, the animals know it, and they say very little. You can transmit love, compassion, and the wisdom to do it simply by walking where you've always walked and knowing who you are. It's almost like that wisdom and that light that comes from your Merkaba spreads itself wherever you go. And it touches others who will eventually ask you, how do you have peace over these things? I'm in the same condition you are, and all I see is that you are peaceful, and I'm not. And you can begin to talk to them about perhaps who they are, what they might examine that might give them a different idea, that they are not a victim of the world, that they are in control of who they are. And that would be your wisdom. And all of that is from your experience of walking from A to B because of who you are. This Merkaba of yours is going to play a bigger part than you know in the future. That's its design. That's why it's there. Think of the Merkaba as a multi-dimensional biology that has always been with you, that some have sensed from the beginning, and some have studied and taught about, but still you have no idea what's there. Unbridled wisdom is the ability to understand that you don't know what you think you know. Unbridled wisdom is a wisdom that wants to sit and be quiet and simply ponder the beauty of all it is and be satisfied with that. The most exciting thing for a guru is to be quiet for a year. If you've ever studied that, if you ever wanted to know what that's about, that's internal. Collectively for this planet, even in your quietness and your silence, is enormous. And it redefines wisdom, what it is, where it's going, and it shows you what it is not. When it came to naming this structure, there were several names considered. But wisdom won. The idea would not be necessarily a church or an auditorium, but a temple was also on purpose, because it rings of sacredness and speaks of an attribute of the Creator. Neither of those things are attributes of humanity. Being built in a circle on purpose, just like the Lemurian teaching wheel. Having the gems in the middle on purpose, because that is the great central sun. That is where it's all remembered and comes together. That's where energy is. Nothing is by accident in the room. All of these things, dear ones, are starting to be revealed in this age, in this time, which makes this particular structure extremely current. Not old, not filled with old ideas or old things, but built way in advance for something called the shift. There is so much going on here right now. How wise are you? Can you even begin to get in touch with this you call the cellular structure? And for those of you who are having difficulty, it's something that you're not taught in school and you're not taught anywhere. You're not taught even in spiritual systems. Instead, you're taught to get a hold of a prophet. And now it's time for you to get a hold of the main prophet, you. In the same fashion, it starts with love, appreciation, honor. And that which is belief. Can you believe that it's there? And it's inside. And it's wise. It's always been part of that which is the confluence of energy called your Merkaba. Some of these things are hard to understand for those who would listen now and later. And what I want to tell you is, like any advanced teaching, there'll come a day when there's an aha. Like in the last channel, when you learned to read. And then finally you understood you were reading. Right now, you're learning to be wise. And there'll come a time when you'll say, I am that I am, because now I know. That's where humanity is headed, in whatever speed it wishes to go there. That's the free choice of what it's like to have 2 steps forward and 1 back, of the battle of light and dark and duality that is in front of you, and where it's going from here. But I'll tell you, month after month, you're winning. You can see it. Don't be frightened if things seem different, dear ones. They are. Don't be frightened of change, because there will be. Instead, claim that wisdom which says, I expect the unexpected. I expect benevolent outcome. Because that's who I am. Be peaceful with the next step. We speak today from Delphi in the Temple of Wisdom, again in honor of those who created it, the forethinking of all that they did to put this place the way they put it. Had no idea that it was built for now and the future. And so it is.